Cool. I guess where we'll start this week, we'll talk about All-Stars. Voting started on the 28th, it's going to end on the 16th of January. I'm seeing all the graphics popping up, some on the Courtside account. I think I've seen one from you, Greg. I'm seeing everybody's tweeting out their All-Stars so far. I'm probably going to wait till a few days before it closes, personally speaking. But I'll start with you, Yes. Since your Celtics were on yesterday and you had a couple of guys who did really well and probably are very much in the All-Star starter conversation, let's start in the Eastern Conference. Who do you have currently down as your starters?
Yeah, I think it's a weird one this year in that there's the starters, which I think there's a few debates there to have, and then the reserves are kind of the All-Star weekend, All-Star game, whatever you call it, is a popularity contest. You know, people are going to get in there kind of regardless of performance based off their name and can be forgiven for not playing as many games and all of that stuff. So it's a funny one. Where I'm sort of focusing is I feel like there's so many players in the league who maybe deserve a nod, especially this year where maybe they've had the platform to perform, where people have missed time with injury and COVID and the Knicks not being embarrassing and stuff like that. So I got a big near miss almost all-star list, and the almost all-stars are probably the ones that interest me the most. But in terms of starters for the East, and look, this could change as well. It's early, but the voting has opened up and stuff, so it is kind of that dominating the discussion now. I think the front court kind of picks itself in the East, if I'm honest. Kevin Durant is in for me without any shadow of a doubt. He's on mad form despite the low minutes and usage than maybe he would be if he wasn't coming off that injury. Joel Embiid is an MVP candidate right now. That again goes without saying. The Bucks are kind of middling and a bit of a strange season, but again, if you look at kind of what Greg is not a Giannis guy at times. So.
No, I like Giannis. I just feel like he has his very obvious flaws.
He has very obvious flaws, but we'll see if I don't know about starter for Greg. And again, I feel like Giannis is kind of a no-brainer in terms of the start conversation. It's the backcourt that is most interesting to me because Harden and Kyrie, lovely stuff. You know, the Nets big three, fantastic, yeah, cool. But
interesting.
They've both missed time. Harden,
I personally wouldn't start, but we know he'll.
Yeah, Harden maybe hasn't technically missed time, but his body was on the court. He's when he was in
spirit, you know, you show up.
Maybe his spirit wasn't.
You clock in, but you're not actually
you're not actually at work yet.
And I don't know. Yeah, I think we've all very quickly forgotten the Houston potential blow up that was Jimbo Slice over there before he was the happy-go-lucky playmaker, just setting everybody else up. I've controversially put Bradley Beal as a starter for me, right? And then I get the argument against it. I get it. Wins. You know, the record is awful. I can't remember the last time a guy has done so much individually to offset the negative record of his side than Beal. Obviously, he's getting memed to high heaven after every game with the sad faces and the shaking the heads and the hands in the heads in hands and all that sort of stuff. And his missus probably needs to come off Twitter a little bit. She's very, very vocal when they are shit. Too vocal. It doesn't help, love. Please just put the phone down, please. But he's just hitting ridiculous numbers. He's still top scorer in the whole NBA at the moment. If not, maybe less because of the games. He's definitely per game top scorer. And then my other starter is the one I kind of want to mainly focus on is Jaylen Brown. And I don't think that's much of a debate for me either. I
don't think Jaylen Brown's a debate. I think
the starter is maybe what people would say, but I just don't think there is. I think he's been the best player ahead of Jason Tatum of a team who have been okay, have been good. The record's probably a bit worse than they've actually performed in the Boston Celtics. So yeah, I think Jaylen Brown's a shoe-in for the All-Star game this year, if there is an All-Star game, because you know the idea of just being very careful about COVID and then sending everybody for a weekend in Atlanta. I'm sure that there is no problems there that may arise whatsoever. I can't see anything going wrong.
Zero temptations whatsoever.
It is zero temptations. Everyone's going to check in, check out, play the game, lovely stuff. But yeah, I feel like everyone's kind of accepted that he's in. I feel like he needs to be a starter. And
he was unlucky not to get in last season, to be honest, and he's gone up another level now.
Absolutely, he was crowded out maybe with our wing depth and Kemba. It feels weird to say after last night, but Kemba still being an all-star starter last year. But yeah, Jaylen Brown, he's been not just the best player for me, the Boston Celtics. He's been number one option for a lot with Tatum missing COVID and Kemba missing time. He's averaging 27 points. His assists have gone up to 3.5 a game, which for someone who was not a playmaker at all, really, he was more a spot-up guy last year, is a massive responsibility. Everything's gone up. His mid-range game has just transformed despite no off-season. He was at one point the most efficient mid-range player in the league before he came back to earth a little bit. He's just turning into the complete scorer and has always been a positive two-way player. And I just don't think you can look beyond him as a starter this year.
Agreed. Who do you have down as your starters, Greg, for the East?
So I think I pretty much have the same as Yas. In the front court, KD, Giannis, and Embiid. I mean, there's enough said on that front. I think those three are kind of undeniable in their positions there as all-star starters. And then in the backcourt, I have Bradley Beal, obviously, as you mentioned, leading the league in scoring, despite the Wizards being bottom of the East and maybe even having the worst record overall in the NBA. And then, yes, I have Jaylen Brown as the other guard spot.
Oh, so you guys completely agreed with each other. I thought there was a bit of friction.
He's had an insane season. I know we're going to talk about the Celtics later on in the pod, but yeah, I think there's arguments to be made for Kyrie and Harden starting as either one of them being in the starting guard spot. I mean, Harden has spent half of his season in the West, so it is a little bit hard to put him as an East starter. But for the fourth side of him starting, he is leading the league in assists. He's been averaging like 24, 25, 11 and 7-ish since coming to the Brooklyn Nets. So I wouldn't be too mad at anyone that puts him in an all-star starter position. Kyrie has been having a great season so far, but again, he's missed a lot of games. It's kind of hard to put him in an all-star starting position when he's only played, I think, under 15 games pretty much. And everyone else is nearing that 20-game mark.
Yeah, cheeky 2-week break for Kyrie there. So you mentioned that you're much more interested in the almost guys, the maybe guys. So let's hear some of the guys who you think are going to be not necessarily controversial, but who you feel are definitely deserving of all-star praise this season.
Well, I think some of them pick themselves. I think despite missing a little bit of time with COVID, I think Tatum probably gets in just because he did last year and he hasn't regressed at all. Sabonis, again, I feel like he's gone up a level. So again, I feel like he's just a shoe-in. And then like we said, sort of, you got James Harden, you got Kyrie Irving. They're not going to not be at the All-Star game. So they're shoe-ins. And then you've kind of just got this logjam of guards behind them. You've got Trae Young. You got Ben Simmons, who again, like if we're talking name, Ben Simmons is just gonna be mentioned and voted for. I personally would. He's not near the top of my list. Like he's
not on my list.
I have to agree.
He's just nowhere near it really. And then it's like I don't have him in my reserves because I haven't been impressed with him. And then he's not even in my almost all-star list either because I'm reserving that more for people who've impressed me and surprised me. So it's kind of just, but he's probably in, isn't he? Like we're talking name and stuff.
Simmons,
and then you got Chris Middleton, again, all-star last year. It's not like he's played poor this year. So it's a funny little logjam. I'm not sure exactly who I'm settled on for my reserves for sure, but people that I think need consideration that maybe are being overlooked. Gordon Hayward is playing to the level.
He's what do we say? Hooping.
He's hooping, and he's playing to the sort of level that had him an all-star previously in the West. I struggle to see an argument against him. Really, like I think he's been fantastic for Charlotte.
Argument against him is that there's just so many good forwards in the East.
But then who would you?
I mean,
I think the guard spots are more stacked than the forward spots in the East.
I mean, it's just stacked all around.
Who would you have then as forwards?
So for me, I don't know if you finished your list. I don't want to cut you off.
I've got others as well. I've got a Jeremy Grant in there as a maybe, and I've got a Tobias Harris, probably unfashionable one, but again, just playing very, very well on a top seed in the East. So whatever winnings were, there's that. I consider Levine a guard, and you could maybe throw him in as a small forward side, and then I'd throw Bam, obviously front court. Potentially, he's the one shining light of a disgusting Miami Heat team. But then that's
the name I'm waiting to hear from either of you.
I think I'm going to mention him. Yeah. So I got on my bench, I got Kyrie and Harden. We spoke about obviously bench / starters, whatever. I got Trae Young, Tatum. Tatum was having a great season, or is having a great season. Obviously, he missed quite a few games with COVID. Sabonis has been balling out for the Pacers. He for me makes the All-Star bench. And I got Levine and Randall. I think Levine is just, again, the Bulls aren't a great team, but Levine is just, he was balling last season. He's been balling this season. I actually want him to leave Chicago and just take his talent somewhere else. And then Randall with the Knicks. The Knicks, have been that franchise that have been destined to not even mediocrity, just below mediocrity for so long. And Randall has them, competing for one of the lower playoff spots. So he's averaging 20 and 10 plus. He for me makes All-Star bench as well. And under the near misses section, I've got Bam. Obviously, we've talked about the Heat and their struggles. Hayward looking like he's getting back to or at that form that he was at before the leg injury. Sexton from the Cavs, I've got there. He's having a nice season. And last but not least, Middleton. Middleton started the season strong. He's been still consistent. He's their go-to guy down the stretch, but I feel like the other forwards in the league have elevated their game more than he's elevated his. So we're seeing.
I think Jaylen might have pushed him out. I was thinking if you would mention Malcolm Brogdon. Probably you, yes. To be honest,
you know what? I like Malcolm Brogdon in it, but I know Sai was big. Out of here, man.
Sai All Stars, yeah.
You got people like Trae Young, who's going to be grafting to get in there. Zach LaVine, who's carrying a terrible, not terrible, bad Chicago team. Like Brogdon's had a nice season, but I'm not having him in there just yet. But I think Randall Hayward is probably where I think that spot can go to when you said forwards in front of him. And I don't know why. Like if you look at raw sort of numbers, Randall's outdoing Gordon Hayward on just very obvious metrics, rebounds, assists, whatever. Julius, I guess it's what you value to put in an All-Star game. I think Gordon Hayward is a better basketball player than Julius Randle. I think he's been a better basketball player this season. Julius Randle's been amazing for a team that have been amazingly surprising to everyone. But it helps Julius Randle to get sort of boost a bit of numbers on the Knicks, because for all the excitement about the Knicks not being terrible, they're still bad. And like he's still sharing the ball with who we talking? Okay, RJ Barrett has a good game every 4.
Austin Rivers randomly scores 35 and then scores 2 the next game.
7 in a game. And then and it's just a bit of a weird kind of roster. They got a lot of big still. They got sort of Nerlens Noel there. You got Mitchell Robinson there who are having good years, but their roster just allows Randle to just sort of do whatever and be this point forward and do whatever, because they still don't have a lot of talent really on the roster. I think that's more. I see that more as a coaching nod and award than an individual player one. Hayward has a lot more talent around him, but he's still the go-to guy to close. He's getting last shots, but he's not hogging or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe it's the narrative for me that backs him in terms of the years he's had with the injury and people saying he was done and everything like that. But I think Hayward's been so good, and he's changed the role based on the game as well. Sometimes he'll go off for higher points and just be shooting at ridiculous clips. Sometimes he'll take a further back seat and just kind of play very, very team basketball. Greg, I see you on the Twitter as well, where you've kind of come to the realization I did a couple of weeks ago that the Charlotte Hornets are so fun to watch, and I just
it's not even a realization. I was watching them from the start. I just reiterating it that they have a lot of young talent and they're just a fun team to watch. They're not necessarily, they're not one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, but it's still fun to watch. I got cussed on the Twitter for saying this. They were like, "Yeah, but they're shit." I was like, well, "That's not really the point." I'm saying they're fun and nice and enjoyable. I think that might hurt Hayward's chance a little bit in that he's in a very team-centric situation. It feels like. but he's the main guy to me of a team that, again, I think they've overperformed. Sorry, compared to maybe not Knicks level, but I think they've overperformed as well, considering young coach, new pieces, everything like that.
Agreed.
So yeah, Hayward sneaks in for me, man. Just as a potential who could just get in off those forward spots. I don't think he's as stacked as the guard spot.
I like Randall. I like the nod to Randall. I agree with you what you mentioned in terms of him kind of getting the touches just because of the makeup of the roster. My thing is always, if that's leading you to wins as well and keeping you competitive, then I'm going to give you the extra points for that. So I think, yeah, with the Hornets and with the Knicks, you've got two teams that are overachieving. Sorry, should I say? That's why I'll probably wait till like a couple of days before it closes to make my decisions in terms of who I'm going to make my All-Star. I enjoyed that. Actually. That's pretty good. Let's switch over to the other conference, the more talented conference, they say. And you can start this time, Greg. Give us your starters, and then Yash will give us his starters.
All right, so my starters for this season so far, Damon Curry at the guard spot, and then LeBron, Kawhi, and Jokic as the forward spots. I don't know really what else there is to say. I think those are some solid starters.
How about yourself, Yes? I'm expecting him to have a couple of players.
It picks itself, didn't it? Kawhi, LeBron, Jokic, and Damon Curry. I won't lie. On the Twitter, I put Doncic the other day because I was just like, he's carrying that Dallas team. Nah, man.
Lost 5 straight.
Yeah, they've lost 5 straight, and I kind of was blindsided by the fact that Dame is carrying Portland every.
Well, even wins aside,
I'll ask you guys a question.
Even wins aside, I think those guys are just playing better. Damon
I'll
Curry.
ask you guys a question though. Why does Paul George not get in as a starter?
I think, do you know what? I'm finding it increasingly hard to separate Paul George and Kawhi in terms of with the Clippers. Because, again, they're quite team-centric now. They share the ball more than they did under Doc Rivers. Like, Ty Lue seems to have made that a big point of emphasis. I feel like Paul George started on fire and it was in my MVP case and probably still is. I've been a little, I'll be honest, I've been a little bit quieter on the Clippers just in terms of volume of watching last week or so, 10 days. I think Kawhi's just kind of just overtaken him in terms of just raw numbers and it's Kawhi. I fucking love Kawhi. Like I just like him more. I think they're so hard to separate that when pushed, I just sort of have said,
I almost wish you could split the spot in half and just.
Do you know what I mean?
Because if I put PG in, you'd ask the question, why not Kawhi?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remove LeBron, so
They play individual all-star chances, but it is very good for the Clippers as a unit. So they're sort of a very, very touch and go, really.
Cool, but essentially in terms of all the other spots, I'd agree with you guys. Those are the guys who should be starting. Greg, who did you have as your bench and your almost the guys who are on the pro?
All right, so for the bench, I've got Mitchell. I mean, the Jazz are they won 11 straight currently.
Yeah, some may say it's a bit harsh not to have a Jazz as a starter, but
yeah,
like Yas says at the start, it's not necessarily about team records and people go for entertainment and buckets and flashy play. And in regards to that, again, the Jazz are a team that just execute well. I ain't making Rudy Gobert an all-star starter, so yeah.
So yeah, I got Mitchell, Luka, PG, Zion, and AD, and then Booker and Gobert. Booker for me has had, I won't say disappointing season, but he just hasn't, played maybe to the level that I was expecting, especially with the addition of CP3. Gobert, I think he's quote unquote overpaid, but hey, he got the money and he does his job and he does it well. And you're anchoring the defense of a team that is number 1 in the West. I can't leave you out of the All-Star, ballot for that. And then near misses, I have Ingram, Ja Morant, and CJ McCollum. Obviously, CJ's gone down with the injury. Ja Morant has missed some time, but the Grizzlies are now, in the top 8 in the West. And he is obviously, pulling that team along. And then Ingram, obviously the Pelicans have had their struggles, but I still think Ingram has been solid this season.
How about yourself, Yes?
I'm pretty much exactly the same, I won't lie. And I think it's an interesting point about Booker. I feel like now he's in a cohesive actual team that is focused on, hey, we're good now. And Chris Paul's come in and has the ball in his hands a lot. I feel like Chris Paul's just sort of, I don't know, shoved him out of contention for it a little bit. Like we said again, name-wise, Chris Paul's going to be in the All-Star game. It's going to happen. And yeah, so I feel like Booker might suffer a little bit there. I'm with you on Ingram. I think Ingram more than deserves his place still being included. But I'm basically the exact same. But with the West, I find it there's so many players that I think are having such a good little season that probably are not going to make this All-Star game. They're just not, right? But I've made a ugly duckling 5, almost All-Star.
Interesting. I'm going to guess one, and you can tell me if I'm right. Is Christian Woods on there?
Yeah, Christian Woods on there.
Yeah,
Christian Woods on there. And do you know what? While I was doing this, I won't lie, I almost put a whole 5 from Houston just because I'm so happy with like
John Wall's come back and he looks great as well.
Mate, they've turned the shittest situation into something passable. I was looking, I felt so bad for Steven Silas, what the mess he was walking into. I was thinking, I was adamant that John Wall was the losing asset in that trade because he hadn't played for 2 years.
Well.
I think we always.
I tried to warn people.
I was so sure of it. And then, oh my God, like the Wizards lost that trade hard. It looks like. Caveat, he might come, Quad might fix up whatever. But the fact that Houston were able to just get actual John Wall in this trade and sort of get his mate in Boogie, who he's wanted to play with from Kentucky times. And look, maybe they're not like who you'd build a culture around if you had your pick of the league, right? In an ideal world, there's people who have contrasting opinions about them, whatever. But I feel like them two have come into a situation that maybe wasn't ideal for either at first. New coach. But if you watch them, they've just won 5 on the bounce. And they were starting on fire. They had the Harden distraction, everything like that. In the offseason, they had no idea what they were doing in terms of front office. They were like, right, we're going to trade Covington and probably blow it up. Oh, shit, no, wait. Yeah, maybe we'll stick it together. Right, Westbrook wants to go as well. Well, we signed Christian Wood, so we still do have to win a little bit now because he's chosen us in free agency. So it was just a bit of a mess. And it was like, where are you going? Like, are you going to keep it?
Murray's gone.
Yeah, like
D'Antoni's gone.
Yeah,
Harden wants to leave. Like they had a big off season.
It was a complete upheaval of everything. And despite Boogie and Wall maybe not being everyone's cup of tea, they've come in with someone like Christian Wood as well, who's had to graft to get his starting spot in the league altogether for years. And they've just made a scrappy, hard-nosed, good-to-watch team that are good in the clutch as well. Like, they're a good closing team. They're a good late team. John Wall looks brilliant. And I won't even lie.
Come in and he's fitting well.
And do you know who looks good? Again, for the same caveat, I can't include them for the Harden started maybe different conference. Oladipo looks good this year.
He's come back, and obviously his contract year, isn't it? So
contract year.
He knows where his bread is buttered.
He's like a true Nigerian.
Yeah, he's got his priorities straight, but he looks really good this year. Like I watched them against the Pelicans the other night, and they scored 75 in the first half. Now look, Pelicans are a bit of a mess in their own right, but 75 points in the first half. Oladipo was just on fire. So I've actually got Wall and Wood in my I wish they could 5 in terms of a guard and a forward spot.
Let me guess, is SGA there as well?
Do you know what? SGA is not there, right? But SGA makes me laugh because the OKC really want to tank. And he's just like,
he's too good.
No. I want to put up 20 and 7 or whatever. I don't want to tank. It's hilarious. My other guard is Connolly, man. I feel like Mike Connolly has been
never made an all-star team. I think he might get it this year.
And you talk about giving the Jazz credit for their record. Connolly as well. Look, Connolly, when he joined the Jazz last year, it just didn't really work. And after about 10, 15 games, they just sort of relegated him to the 6th man. And it was like, look, this is just best for everyone. He didn't have a great year. Something about his baby boy made things burst in the boom for him in the bubble. He started sinking everything, and he had a really good series against Denver. And he's just started this year brilliantly. Like his raw numbers are good, like in line with his sort of career numbers, but he's just playing with such poise. He's a really mature presence next to Mitchell, who's a little bit. I don't want to use. It's not be negative and say inefficient, but he's Mitchell will chuck it a little bit, and Mitchell will.
He's young.
He's young.
Yeah, he's young and athletic. You know,
he's exuberant. Great.
Yeah.
There we go. Exuberant. And I think Connolly's just a lovely compliment to that.
Steady hand, yeah.
And you could even argue that someone like Jordan Clarkson is who I was never a
sixth man of the year candidate, I think.
Yeah, and so I think they're another one like Houston where you could kind of pick anyone who kind of deserves it. But I think Mike Conley does, man. I think he's been sick. If he could sneak in there, I just don't know if he will.
I like to see them give it to him this year.
I'd like to. It's like with the Oscars where you give an old actor an Oscar, even though it's a bit shit.
Lifetime Achievement Awards.
Yeah.
There's no time. We got no time for Lifetime Achievement Awards. Okay. we got Damon Curry averaging 40.
Al Pacino got nothing for like The Godfathers, but he got some shit one like 20 years later.
A friend of a woman, yeah. The thing about Conley is that he also he played in the West, man. And if he played in the East, he probably makes an all-star team like 4 or 5 times, 3, 4, 5 times. So, he got drafted into 13 years in the league. He's been a steady guard. He had his time with Memphis, who were always a kind of fan favorite, neutral favorite. And he's gone to the Jazz, like Yas said. He started off badly, but him and Gobert, based on all metrics, are basically like the best duo in the league. And when you look at plus minus, and I know Yas, you might roll your eyes. When you look at plus minus, they're far and away the most impressive guys in the league this season so far. So yeah, he's a great shout. Who else do you have filling out that roster?
A last little one for that 5 is I kind of cheated. Let me throw Wood in the center spot to include Oladipo in my 3 Rockets because they're just and Ja Morant as well. By the way, like very easy to slip in there. Like I know he's missed time that might kill him a little bit, but
the Grizzlies are 5th in the West now.
Bro, they're on
6
winning streak as well. Ja's ridiculous. Like he's
the next great point guard in the league.
But this is
one day we're going to start the narrative of Ja versus Zion.
Oh mate!
Who should have been number 1? Yeah, it's loading.
Listen, story time. I was in New York the day before or the day of the draft. I can't remember that draft. And I was walking down the road, and I was with my wife, and I was just sort of explaining. They had RJ Barrett Knicks jerseys in the NBA store even before the draft had happened, which I was just like, wow, he really is a sure thing to go to the Knicks. I found that quite funny. And then she was like, "Who's this RJ Barrett guy?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm not huge on this Barrett fella. He's gonna go 3rd. I don't know if I love him." And then she was like, "But everyone's on about Zion, aren't they?" I said, "Yeah, Zion's gonna go." And then she goes, "Is Zion the best one?" Then she likes basketball, but she's a casual. She's like Shaq, right? Shaquille O'Neal, not podcast Shaq. Just let me not catch anyone with any strays.
I definitely thought you were talking about podcast Shaq.
But listen, podcast Shaq called Bam Adebayo meth the other day, so I want to have words with him on air soon. But yeah, and then she was like, "Who else is in the draft?" And I said, "Well, there's this second guy called Ja Morant who I love. I think I'd pick him first if it was me." And then some nitty on 5th Avenue in New York was just like, "Yep, I'm all over Ja Morant." And so just from that, my missus has Ja Morant's name burned. He proper came and started breaking down. Like he didn't look well, but he knew why he liked Ja Morant as first pick in that draft. And he was breaking it down, whatever. So I love Ja, and I think rookie. It would have been a crime if like they swindled him out of the rookie of the year when Zion came back last year.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's class. But my last spot, and this is pure me dying on the hill of favoritism, but I just like what he's kind of become, and I really like the team that he's in just to watch. 4-time All-Star. It would be nice if we could throw another little one at the reinvented point forward, Demar Derozan, who's switched up his game. He's got a little old man playmaker game going on now. He's taking threes, boys, like 2 a game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons. Are you watching Ben Simmons?
Even
we'll get on to Ben. Don't you worry about it, sweetheart.
And he's way off it. He's not going to get it. It's too competitive. But I just feel like Demar, the Toronto failings are very tied to him, and his stock's kind of fallen in the league, and people don't really rate him like that. But Demar is still a joy. And when Demar's on it, like against the Nuggets the other night, he can still just go off. It was 11 assists and 35 points, I think, the other night, 30 points. And I think they've gone. He's just a joy, man.
I think they've gone too far on him. Obviously, we playing this like 3-point pace and space era, spacing. So someone who can't shoot, he's immediately labeled as not useful. So he went from probably being a bit overrated in Toronto to now being a bit underrated. Like what he did at the Spurs and just as a player in general. So yeah, I don't think he's a bad shout at all. And the Spurs again, like no matter what their roster is, Pop always seems to find a way to make them competitive. Like they may not be as good as they were a few years ago, but they're always there and thereabouts. They're always a tough team to beat. So again, I think they're just on the periphery of the playoff spots, aren't they?
Well, the West is so close. They like, I think 2 days ago they were like 5th in the West, and now they're 9th. So who knows?
Yeah, it's resembling the Premier League table at the moment. Everyone's got a game in hand that lifts them up 2 or 3.
That's a football reference, Greg.
In fact, from 5 or 9, they're all 4.5 games behind.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they are. Is there anyone Yas hasn't mentioned? Really comprehensive there, Yas. I'd be surprised if there is. Is there anyone that Yas hasn't mentioned?
I just want my boys to do well. I just want
my boys to shine. Is there anyone else that Yas hasn't mentioned that comes to mind?
No, I think he's covered everyone. Cool. Yas has put half the NBA in the Western.
The Western Conference.
I think it's COVID. It's a bit shittier. Let's just double the amount of people we let into the All-Star game this year. Get everyone a bit of a bonus on the contracts. Come on, let's do it.
Yeah, get them all to Atlanta. That can only end well. Cool, nice. I like that, and we'll be watching eagerly. And yeah, I guess we can post our teams on the Courtside Twitter account as well.